what I'm going to work with is I'm trying to develop a program for active shooter defense. And if you'll notice, like an example, we just had this guy at LAX. I was just through that airport a week before they blew up the bathrooms with ice bombs, and 2 weeks before somebody walked in there with an AK-47 and killed a couple of kids. 5 or 6 more. And that individual had an assault weapon type, some kind of carbine.
Thank you.
But what I'm doing is I'm doing it based on this New York City Police Department active shooter study. And it tells us a lot of things that you might not, and you can get it, you can look it up. In fact, if you guys later on somebody will contact me and you can't find it, one of the guys on my board of directors sent this thing to me. He trains the police departments, Army, Navy, stuff like that, and he's really big into getting these studies. But one of the things it tells us is that a couple of things that I picked out of this, and so I want to kind of utilize this to make our training from. One is that almost every one of these active shooters is a handgun shooter. When we had this thing happen with Sandy Hook, he started screaming about, this guy had a Bushmaster, he didn't. They started screaming about how, he had all these long guns, he didn't. But there was this impression in much of the United States where most of these people are carrying around clips with 100 rounds of ammunition in them and all these long assault rifles with heavy calibers and stuff like that. And that's not generally the case. According to the New York Police Department, about 85% of these shooters have a handgun. And most of the time the handgun is either stolen or borrowed from somebody, and it's not their handgun. And my thought is this: I was going to come into a group of people who, some of you have been with me pushing 40 years, and you're all competent. Some of you have amazing reputations on your own. And so instead of showing you something, I'll show you a few things, and I'm going to try to get the conversation started within the organization, within the people we know. Maybe we can cover some more stuff. Because my thought is, someday one of you may be in a situation like this. Now, Alex may be capping this guy from 1,500 yards out, but the rest of us may have to get a little closer than that. And this New York City study indicates that often, more than half the time, there's somebody within arm's reach that he isn't shooting at. So unlike a traditional self-defense thing where this guy's pointing the gun directly at you, all of this stuff will start from, I'm standing here drinking my coffee at Starbucks, and the guy walks in and starts shooting at people. He's close, but he's not shooting at me initially. Like this TSA guy, I guess it was one of these people who was in the TSA, but shooter turns around and looks at him and goes, "You TSA?" Not me. And he goes on because he wasn't in uniform, so he can shoot it. So sometimes it's selective, sometimes it isn't. Sometimes, like the one we had in the theater not too long ago, where the guy walked in and started shooting. He didn't know he was shooting at him. It was in the dark. So, I'm just thinking if we could put somebody out there, if we could actually be in a situation, they'd have a little bit of thought about this. It's not so much the training, because you guys all know, whatever I show you or whatever you modify, it won't be down to a science today. It's just a matter of getting the thought going on it, that we can think about doing this. There might be some more effective ways to do this than maybe the way some of us think about it. So one of the things I want to cover here is in a handgun, because I'm going to kind of limit myself to handguns anyhow. In a handgun, I see a lot of defenses. I watched a guy the other day claim to have the fastest disarm in the world. And a lot of these disarms are based on an automatic replica, and he's grabbing the top of the slide. I have a 40 caliber Beretta, and I put on a set of leather work gloves and grabbed the top of that slide and pulled the trigger. It tore the palm out of that set of work gloves. And one person grabbed the top of the slide of a handgun is somebody who is either so desperate to get something, and I've been there, where you'll take anything you can get, or somebody that doesn't have any idea that half pressure from that round going on pushes the bullet out, and the other half pushes the slide back. So it grabs you pretty bad. So you want to grab the slide. You also don't want to grab the back of the weapon near the hand, because that slide is coming back. Depending on the weapon, it's coming back anywhere from 1.5 to 2 inches. And those little backs of most slides and most automatic pistols is pretty sharp. They only pop a hole right through your hand. And it's pretty hard to kind of be very objective and keep your wits about you when something just broke part of the bones in your hand and shoved it halfway into your hand. And it's still functional. After it did that, it went back into place and you haven't done anything. I've seen people reach out and grab the barrel. Again, that's not a really good idea, even if you're not over the end of the barrel, because again, that slide's moving, and that thing's about to get real hot. So we're going to try to work with things that don't involve getting out here and grabbing this weapon in such a way that we're going to grab the slide, the back of the thumb up here, that we're going to grab the end of the barrel, especially not in front of the barrel, obviously. Although I've seen that done. I saw a guy one time that had this thing where if you touched certain parts of the weapon, the gun wouldn't go off. So I said, okay, I'll try that. Took my oar, shoved that 45 1911 on it, bang, and blew that 2-40 in two. It didn't seem to have any trouble at all, no matter how hard I pressed. So, I want to call my pinky, so I didn't try it with my finger. So, if we do that, then we've covered a certain amount of ground here, and we can probably maybe grab the wrist or throw the weapon. But that's only part of the problem. Part of the problem is a thing called muzzle blast. Some of you shoot a lot, you know what I'm talking about. Some of you maybe never shot or shot very much. You might not have paid much attention to it. But the blast range for something in the neighborhood of 9mm to 45 caliber is at least this far out. It's blowing fire. I've been in the wrong end of this. I still have scars on this side of my neck from somebody setting off a handgun off on even my side, theoretically. Near me, and the muzzle blast gave me second, third degree burns over the side of my neck. So that's something that you can't do. A lot of these self-defense movements are done when you pop this thing up here and you're going into this particular movement. Well, this is really not very safe for you. You might have the weapon pointing toward the ceiling, but that muzzle blast can not only blind you and burn you and so on, the muzzle blast, depending on how close it is, will kill you. So you got to be really careful about the muzzle blast. You got to be careful about where is this weapon going in the process of getting it back into him. I got this cute little disarm, pop this up here, but in the process of doing that, I cover this field about 90 degrees on his left, and this 8-year-old girl over here sitting there not doing anything gets a bullet in the head while I'm trying to take this out, because as soon as I put pressure on this, I'm assuming this is an active shooter. This person isn't out here like this with the weapon up and no finger to the trigger. He's trying to shoot somebody. So he has very little fall. I mean, my wife's got a 38 caliber pistol, a little revolver, and when you cock that, the end of the hammer comes down, but it's just almost on the frame. I don't know how much pull there is there, but it can't be more than half a pound. So let's say this person's got a weapon that doesn't have much pull left, and he's already maybe depressing the trigger, and you get up here and you take this thing away, but you're not paying attention to where this is going. In a lot of these situations, almost all of them, there are many people involved. There's not too many active shooters that walk into a place where there's only one person there and shoot that one person. They walk into a crowded place because they want to kill a lot of people. So every disarm that involves moving this weapon around, and a lot of these, for instance, will try to catch this guy's finger in the trigger guard. Well, when you're doing that, you're depressing that trigger. And if you think it won't go off, it will. We used to do this thing with 357, put blanks in it, and do disarms, and the round would actually go off. And we do it primarily for effect to scare people, but it also shows you that when you're doing this, and you got control of this, like on a revolver, you grab the cylinder, then the thing won't go off. Yeah, it will. They're still around there. It's still, even double action. Some double actions don't rotate the cylinder, some do, but even if he has a round in the chamber and the hammer back, that holding that cylinder only controls it for the next round. The first round went through you or some other poor sucker around here who's trying to just get out of the way. So what we're going to start out working with is some kind of a technique where this guy comes in and he's extending one arm and he's controlling. You're trying to control this guy in such a way that the first thing that happens is his hand goes down. Because I'm going to start out every one of these moves I'm going to come in and I'm going to do some serious damage, but I don't want to do any high kicks. I don't want to turn my back. I don't want to spin. I want to do something real short. And part of the reason I'm going down here is because the action to this is to bend forward. It brings him down along with the technique. I'm going to reach clear to the top of this. I'm going to grab him at the wrist. I'm going to catch his thumb. I'm going to reach right back in here. I'm going to pull it straight back toward him. And I'm going to slide my little finger right up inside the trigger guard. But when that's done, none of these things that I'm going to work on today involve you taking this firearm away and stepping back away from this individual. He might be on the ground. He might be unable to defend himself. You stepping back away from here and getting this firearm on him. Do you have any idea why?
Now you're the aggressor.
Yeah, you're the aggressor. And if this guy's an active shooter and you got this call, well-trained police officers may hesitate to shoot you, but the average guy in a small town gets an active shooter call. He enters the room, you got this guy down on the ground, you got this guy standing over him with a handgun, you're probably going to get a bullet in your head. I doubt if they'll even bother to tell you, stop, police. I'd do the same thing. As a civilian, if I saw this guy with a gun, I think I'd have a tendency to shoot first and think later. I mean, you got to remember their point of view too. They're trying to protect everybody here, not just the guy that who actually was the shooter, but the guy, everybody around. So they're going to try to take this guy down as fast as possible. So you never take this weapon out of his hand. After you shoot him or whatever, you bring him to the ground. You still retain control of that, but you leave the weapon in his hand, even if you have control of the weapon itself. You don't take the weapon away. Both for reasons of liability and reasons of the normal reaction is maybe it isn't the police officer that answers this call. Maybe it's a security guard. Maybe like the state that I come from, we have concealed carry, we have open carry, we have no requirements. You buy a firearm and your driver's license. I've been there 2.5 years. I own 9. Just bought my son a 308. You're going to make him like Alex. We'll get him out here about 15. He can hit pretty good about 750 yards now, but we're shooting smaller weapons. Now that I got 308, I'm going to move him back a little bit. But my point here is, in that kind of an area, it may not be a police officer. I mean, there can't be on every corner. So you may be seeing an armed citizen. He sees the same thing. He's not being slowed down by use of force policy. He's going to shoot you. So you do not want to take control of that weapon and step back away from this guy. You don't want to do it. I mean, you really can't take control of the weapon and have the guy down on the ground and stand back and go, because you don't know what's going on with this guy. You don't know if he has accomplices. I'm just going to try to stay in there close and work with him. The way that I try to work with these is I try to get you guys get partners, work with each other, and go through these. But the thing I want you to do is I don't know every damn thing. I've only been doing this for 61 years, so I don't know it all. Okay, but what I want you to do is I want you to think about, now if this actually happened to me, what would I do? How would I do it? And maybe you can come up with some really good stuff, and the rest of us can get something out of this. Because I'm telling you, when it comes to active shooter kind of situations where I can defend my family or people that, just innocent bystanders, I'll take anything I can get from anybody. Come across, grabbing this guy like this and slap him down on that foot. I'm going to reach in underneath him, grab his thumb, because actually on a closed hand, this is the only steering wheel you have. You can't do anything else with any other finger. I like to watch people that work with the concept of using this finger. Yeah, you can do this and pull his back, possibly. But again, it's just not the kind of control that thumb is, because that thumb wants to move back toward the center of his body and take the gun with it. Down, in, up, take control of the trigger. Catch. Straight up. Okay? And I want you to think about this. Some of you guys are really strong and you're used to grappling with people. Don't think about this, I'm going to do this lock with a lot of power. Think about this with, I'm going to steer with that thumb, use my body, turn it, and he's always going to be stronger than me. Because many of these active shooters are on something. They got ready for this by doing, 5 lines of coke or, smoking or drinking or something that they're just not in control of themselves. And in some cases, guys like PCP, things like that, they may be very, very strong and they may be very difficult to control. They may not feel a hell of a lot of pain. Now, as an example, one of the reasons that I don't use a lot of stuff, say like reach out and hit this guy in the side of the face, is I can break his jaw, but I may not get an immediate response. This is mechanical. If I break that ankle, he wants to come down. And if I catch this thing, like as an example, we've already got a modification. If he bends and drops in front of me like that, I'm not going to reach underneath him. I'm going to take to the closest weapon, the closest target, turn this thing in and let him have it right now. But I want to get hold of that thumb, and I want to steer him by using that thumb.